are back on the American Dream Business Roundtable, and we were talking about what are really some of the differences and how do nonprofits work. And you know, you came from the corporate nonprofit world, am I correct?
Cincinnati Childrens, yes.
Cincinnati Childrens. And can you explain how that new program, that entrepreneurship type of program came about?
Well, at Cincinnati Children's, I was in research, and in academia, the past has always been to avoid business at all costs, avoid industry. That's changing now, especially as funding from the federal government is declining, and science and research is more expensive. And so there are a lot of partnerships between academic institutions and industry going on. They help fund some of the research. Academics always maintain their independence. But in addition, places like Cincinnati Children's are actively looking to start businesses. So I mentioned at one point that I worked for a company called Assurex Health. And that is, in fact, part of a spinoff from Cincinnati Children's. Cincinnati Children's helped invest in Assurex Health, and Assurex Health licenses some technology from Cincinnati Children's as well as Mayo. So for those who don't know Assurex Health, it's a huge success story here in Cincinnati. I was hired, I was employee 180, and by the time I left a year and a half later, there were 340 employees.
Wow.
We do testing to determine the right medication for patients with ADHD, PTSD, and depression. So, you know, Cincinnati Children's invested in this commercial enterprise, provided technology and support to get it started, and they're still close collaborators with Assurex Health as they grow.
Are they working with a lot of different countries for, like for instance, Israel is really well known for their inventions, especially for new pharmaceuticals. Mm-hmm. Actually, I don't know if I told you this or not, I actually talked to and worked with and interviewed a gentleman who's a doctor that actually came up with a compound, a marijuana compound, that is better than anything else that they have out on the market. And for children that have epilepsy and whatever, they have a long history of working with these new compounds that they've done instead of going to the actual plant itself, right? And now they're bringing it, and they have relationships here in the United States with these new types of things. They have another product called Flow-Aid, which actually takes and somebody that has neuropathy or they have no circulation, this actually that you put it on to the person and it makes the blood start flowing immediately. So I mean, I see these different businesses and relationships coming with these hospitals and understanding it. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, as I was listening to Michael tell his story, one of the things that I was taken by was the fact that Children's Hospital was directly involved in the very early stages. Typically, what we have seen historically were individuals who would get involved, and then at some point the big institutions, the bigger companies would buy them out or take over the operation. But the entrepreneurial efforts are at all levels now, and we see nonprofits as well as profit businesses having divisions, departments, wings that are totally devoted to coming up with new ideas, new businesses, entrepreneurial efforts. So we have that as well as the individuals. And they require different kinds of strategies, if you will. For example, if an individual brings a notion to market, he may want to stick around for the long haul and see that whole thing develop. Well, some of our typical arrangements for mergers and buyouts and IPOs and things like that generally get rid of the entrepreneur, and it's been problematic. Now, I've developed a program where that doesn't have to happen. It's a specific kind of infrastructure, an organizational structure that allows the financiers to get paid off immediately, and allows the entrepreneur then to grow that business to whatever level they want without getting kicked to the curb, because the angel investors want to get
Paid right away.
Well, not just right away, but big dollars.
Right.
Yes.
Typically 1,000% over 3 to 5 years.
That's a lot.
It's rough math. That's 200% return per year.
Wow.
And even on, I presented a project to one of the angel groups here in town, and this project yielded 150% return. Wasn't enough. And so.
Really?
Yeah. And you ask some of them, why is it that you want such a high return? And they'll tell you, because we lose so often.
Right.
And instead of focusing on why they lose so often, they tend to focus on wanting the big deal, the Googles and those kinds of things where they
Sure.
they make really big dollars.
Yeah.
And
So what they should be doing is embedding a coach into these businesses that
That's
they're
right.
investing in.
and I've been trying to push that that idea for
Yes.
years now, that if they would spend the time bringing in coaches and consultants to review these business opportunities before they invest,
Sure.
they wouldn't have to demand such a high return from the ones that did work.
In fact, even after the business is funded, about 90% of businesses go out of business within 5 to 10 years.
Right.
But those that have a coach, about 80% succeed. So if you want to increase the likelihood of your business succeeding, put someone in there.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I grew up in this industry believing, I think it was a statistic once upon a time, that 95% of all businesses fail within the first year because of the lack of business expertise.
Yes.
And that cascades into financial troubles. So the biggest way to avoid the failure is to align yourself with people who know what they're doing, coaches and consultants.
Right. And
And
marketing people.
oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Some of the main reasons that businesses fail are owner burnout. They didn't understand how hard it's going to be.
Right.
Lack of business acumen and failure to get help. The biggest marker of success is that a business owner asks for help and gets help as soon as possible.
And on that note, we have to take a short break. And would you like to give your website out again?
Absolutely. It is barnesbusinesscoaching.com.
And Greg?
ExcelsiorInstitute.org.
And the TriStateConnection.com. We'll be right back on the American Dream Business Roundtable.
Okay.